So what is your vision for the future that speaks to the commonality of all humans? Or in another way, do you have a dream or an optimistic paradigm for the future?
Yeah, I do. I would like to say world peace, but yeah, and no poverty.
So my dream is to see people living in harmony and being happy.
An educated society, understanding that we are in this together and living together harmoniously. That for me would be a great future.
My dream of the future is really where you see community being established on a bigger level. You know, you have communities where the people live in your road, you have a community with the people at the church, but I'd like to see community established on a bigger level, community in the city, having a community sense and a community feel when you interact with people in your city, having a sense of community when you interact with people in your country. You know, and that appreciation that we are all sharing the same space, we are all from the same place, you know, we identify as South African, we identify as Cape Townian, and seeing that reflected in people's attitudes toward one another.
To see each and every community, each and every one in South Africa, especially the poor communities, having access to electricity. And access to electricity, access to energy doesn't mean being connected to the grid. People are able to put solar panels on their rooftops. People are able to do biodigesters. When they harness that electricity, they're able to feed back or sell into the electricity supply of the country.
I'd like to see both an internally more connected set of human beings, but also an externally more connected set of human beings.
For me, that's a future that takes into consideration people's well-being and the well-being of nature, and a future that recognizes the connectedness of all of those things. That for me is the future that I envision. I recognize that by me planting a tree, I'm not just doing it for me or for my oxygen intake, but I'm also doing it for other smaller, animals in biodiversity. And also recognizing, which is something that I treasure the most about having had an experience in nature, recognizing that we are not necessarily the most important thing out there as humans, but we are part of a system, and so we should always take cognizance of that.
Do you have a dream or an optimistic paradigm for the future?
I am an optimist. I believe that we have a great future ahead of us in our country and on this continent, let alone in the whole world. So the opportunities are there, the ingredients for that wonderful future are there, but we have to bring them together and make them work for us.
What makes me really optimistic is that the people who really are committed to this country don't make it to the front lines and front of newspapers and TVs. Unfortunately, it's mostly the negative stuff about what's happening in our country that shouts the loudest. But if you would listen hard enough and connect with real South Africans that really love this country, of all races and actually ages, young and old, you'll be inspired by what people are doing in their own corners who don't care about applause or anything.
Recently, I found out that 800,000 little kids are in hard labor, and I'm thinking to myself, why is that? Why is a 6-year-old or 9-year-old not at school and they're working? I definitely want to be part of something that would change that. I want to be part of the solution, not part of the people that complain and say, you're not doing that, you're not doing, but what am I doing actually? So I would be a change maker.
I mean, it's the catalysts in enzymes in nature that do the so-called miracles. So inside a leaf, there's something that turns the carbon dioxide into a plastic and brings the carbon out of the atmosphere and puts it back. And that side of we've been pulling up too much carbon and breaking it down and it's gone out, and there's just some catalyst in a leaf that can turn that back. To me, being a catalyst is what I most would love to be.
I work on Project 23, the Green Movement, which is a which is an NPO that does environmental education at schools and communities, mostly in township communities. And I'm also a performing artist. And so it's just one, drop in the ocean where we try and make people aware, and hopefully, shift people's mindsets.
My weekend job is as a convener of Izindaba Zokudla, which is it's a multi-stakeholder engagement forum or series of events that brings together stakeholders to the urban food system. And that's what really tickles me. But I often describe it more like a resistance movement, or we're not resisting people, and there's no bogeyman creating food insecurity. It's really a movement of people that are loosely connected, that move in the same direction, and often we diverge and disagree. And I think that's the way to do it. That's how the brave new world will emerge.
I mean, one of the things we aspire to at Open Streets is bridging the social and cultural divides of the city. In practice, that's quite a difficult thing to do with our streets, simply because of the way South African cities have developed. But that's certainly the goal and the aspiration. And a lot of people have said to us that Open Streets has enabled them to experience different parts of the cities in ways that maybe they wouldn't have done otherwise, and in a powerful connecting way.
My passion is designing ecosystems. So in permaculture, what we're doing is we're designing a settlement or life support system that functions like nature does. So my passion is intrinsically to be one with nature. But that begs the question, how? What is the best practice on every level that we know works? Been tried and tested. Right, let's design that into an overall societal vision. And we use that to drive our process of change. So we're not looking at really anything new in terms of things. What we're looking at is how it is arranged.
And everything is context specific. So if you are dealing with a water crisis in a city, it's often not that the technologies exist, but that the ability to manage water in a whole new way is not possible. So then we'll go into that city planning and we'll start working with change management with the city to help them understand how you could do distributed water management and, recycle water in a new way, even though the technology existed. So that's a different context. Then we'll go into another context altogether, where we with a big company and they don't know that they are making a mess because they're just making something, and when they get told they're making a mess, their first thing is to be defensive. When you say, actually you can make this, you just can make it in a way that doesn't make a mess, then it's like, oh well, show me how. And then that is a more of a technological enabling process. So for me, it's every time there's a challenge, go look at it, explore the context, and there must be a solution.
One of the things I've really loved about being involved with Open Streets is how it's spun off into different groups developing different sorts of passions, and that Open Streets has provided some sort of a platform for all sorts of interesting innovations. And that's very site-specific. So when we go to Langa, it's very different from when we go to Bree Street. But in both places, we're just closing off a road and opening up for people to come out and do whatever, and encouraging that. But how that plays out is different in each context. And what we try and provide is some sort of an enabling environment or a platform for those sorts of innovations to happen by being open to it, by being curious about it and open to it, and also trying as hard as we can to be respectful of what's wanting to come forward.
I lead, even though to me it feels normal, I lead a fairly alternative lifestyle. I wake up sleeping on hemp bed linen, step onto hemp carpets, go and shower and wash with hemp-based soaps in my hemp house, come down and put hemp seeds in my smoothie, and go to work at a hemp factory. And to me that feels normal, but to others that's like alternative. And I would like to see that isn't the alternative, and I truly believe it doesn't have to be, and many people can live this life. So what we're seeing as well is this change around alternative, where 5 years ago it was out there, now everyone's looking for the alternative.
If I look back at 10 years when we were involved in renewables, people first didn't know what it was. People thought it's a greenie issue. People, if they were worried about money, they were worried about the cost, and it was true, it was costly. And fourthly, nobody could had in their imagination that something like renewables, it's not just about providing alternative energy, but it facilitates the development of a new kind of a world in which we are less dependent on a large state or a large firm providing us with all the goods and services. And I think, your work on permaculture and all of that is about autonomy. It's about self-sustaining. And I think this is the kind of stuff that I would like to see happen.
If you generally ask people what's their dream, they will tell you what their dream is. And then they will tell you a whole lot of reasons why you can't have that dream. And that's our conditioning. That's how humans have come to understand themselves to be. But it's not our true state. Our true state is an expansive being that can create anything. And we need to find ways to unlock that. And for me, dreaming is one of those invitations, to really give yourself permission to dream and to allow those dreams to just bubble up and expand inside you. And who knows what will come from that.